Here are 11 reasons that every ADHD home needs floating shelves. Number one, you have space in your home that you are not using right now on your wall. And so you're going to take advantage of that space when you install a floating shelf. Everyone has the space in their home. Everyone has the space in every room. And so what you're going to do is use a floating shelf and put something on there. And then it's going to declutter whatever area you take it out of. It's going to allow you to have more space to put things. It's going to allow you to be able to organize things better. And another reason that floating shelves are good is because you can install them anywhere. When you have space in every room that is unused, then you can put a shelf there somewhere. Even in a corner, you can have a floating shelf there as well. And so it gives you a lot of versatility when you know that you can take it and put it anywhere in your house or apartment, or even going out to the garage and putting it there. And because you can put it anywhere, it allows you to be creative about which room and where you want to put it and what you want to put on it. And another thing about floating shelves is that it keeps things visual. So you have a cabinet, you have to go look in the cabinet, go and open the door and then find what you're trying to find. Instead, you have a shelf that you can put on a wall where you can store some of those same things. Like you have this commemorative cup that you want to store there, or a coffee mug that you want to store on the floating shelf. You can do that. You can put plates on a floating shelf as well. And so it allows you to keep those things always visual, so it's much easier to find them. And if you need them, you can just take them off the shelf. Another thing that's good about floating shelves is it gives you more space to store things. For example, you have a floating shelf and you have a really crammed desk of just all this stuff. And so you take some of that stuff and put it on the floating shelf, and now your desk has more space to it. And so just like I said, you can put plates up there, whatever you want to put there, but now you have this extra space to where you can move something so you don't have it all cramped in one location. And so that can make it easier to decide when you're trying to figure out, do I really want to get rid of this? Do I want to save it? I'm thinking about, but then you look and say, I can put a floating shelf up here and put that thing on there, and then I can keep that thing. And that brings me to another reason. When you have a floating shelf, it allows you to be creative and put things on there. Say you want something for the fall season, you can put all these different fall things on a shelf, or I can make this really cool display on a floating shelf, and then I can kind of show this stuff off that I really didn't want to get rid of, but I really want to keep it, and I know it has some value to it, and I just didn't have a place to store it. Well, now I have a place on that floating shelf. And so you just want a different vibe to your room, and you're like, hey, I don't like that stuff anymore, or the seasons change, I want to do something different. It's very easy to then take that stuff off and put the stuff you actually want on there. And another reason that floating shelves are good is because it makes your room feel less cluttered, feel less cramped. You've taken stuff from your cabinet, from your desk, from wherever, and now you put it on the shelf, and now that stuff is not in its previous place, and now you have more space to do other things or to put other things there. And when you walk into the room, you won't feel like, oh, there's so much stuff in this room, it's just really stuffy, I feel really like just cramped up when I'm in the room. So instead, when you're in there, you'll walk in, you'll be like, okay, I feel a little more space now. It's more opened up now. It just feels more inviting. And another great thing about floating shelves is that they're really easy to install. All you need is a shelf itself, a screwdriver or drill, and whatever screws you need for the shelf, and you are basically ready to install a floating shelf. And then you just go through that process of making sure that you have all the screws into the right places and everything. And then you put it up and you are done. And another thing great about floating shelves is that they're budget friendly. If you want to change up your room or apartment and give it a different vibe and don't want to install a cabinet or something a lot more expensive, go and get a floating shelf. You know, you get a board. They have them in hexagon shapes. They have them actually in box shapes as well. And there's just not as much material needed for a floating shelf. And so it's going to help your pocketbook or your wallet, for example, because of the fact that you just don't have to spend as much. And that's a good thing when you're trying to design a room or change something up or just give something a different vibe. You don't want to spend a whole lot of money doing it. And another great thing about floating shelves is that they are stronger than they look, and that's good because you might look and say, this is not going to hold what I really want to hold on there, but then you install it and realize it will. And it's also cool because people will come over, look at it and say, wow, that thing is really holding up that much. And they'll look at it and say, I didn't think that would work, but it actually does. And that is great because it gives your wall a different kind of feel. Like, hey, these shelves are kind of all floating. It gives it that more aesthetic feel to it, and it gives it a different vibe. Now, this is not the only video that I have on making things more ADHD friendly in your ADHD home. I have a video on that, and you can watch that video right here.